Did you know that there's more than one type of motivation? What we're going to do is we're going to take the three types he talks about here and apply it in a social context.
So I'm someone who spends a frankly inordinate amount of time and effort just trying to make my brain do the things that I want it to do. And because of this, I've spent so much time reading about, watching, and learning about motivation and discipline and all that good stuff. And generally speaking, throughout all these years, I've found that the advice I can find falls into one of two broad systems to do with motivation and how to think about it. And I think there's a third, better way between them. Let me walk you through it. The first of these, I like to call heroic motivation. This view asserts that ultimately, motivation is a test of willpower. It's this inner reservoir, this wellspring that everyone has within them, and that if you just dug deep enough, you would be able to do the thing. It's almost amorphous, sometimes even divine. It's a decision that you can make. And it's very empowering in that because it sort of says you have within you to achieve the things you want to achieve. And it's kind of the motivation of stories. Oftentimes a story is about external factors culminating in a main character's inner machinery changing such that they make this decision and then they are now a changed person and they change the world around them for the better, usually, and everyone's entertained and we're all empowered by that story. And then you have the other part.
This motivational type, which he calls heroic, is really important when it comes to doing scary things socially, because inherently, anything social carries with it some amount of risk. Like most things, I think motivation is great when it comes to getting someone to take that first step towards a scary thing, a new habit, or a new action that results in a habit improving their life over time, like going to meet new groups to make friends. However, I always think that habits are the most reliable method of sticking with a pattern of actions that will result in a general progression towards a goal you have in life. But for the very first part, heroic is good.
Which I call systemic motivation. And this view asserts that we as humans are complex biological machines, and that motivation is really just a sort of emergent property of a bunch of tiny different factors that make up who you are. And really what's going to dictate your behavior is how well those factors add up together. So these are things like how well slept you are, what you ate in the last hour, how well hydrated you are, your friends, what happened last week, your neurodiversity, all these different factors sum together to produce a behavior. And if you're not doing the thing that you want to be doing, if you're not motivated, that's really just down to one of those different pieces not coming together in the way that you need it to.
These factors don't just apply when it comes to productivity. They also apply to stuff like the gym. On any given day, you're going to be at a certain level of energy, strength, clarity. The amount of muscle fibers that you can recruit are going to change depending on your sleep, eating, etc., etc. I like that he's applying this towards productivity because it mirrors a person's ability in social settings. For somebody just trying to get out there for the first time, they may fail 3 or 4 times before they finally hit that right combination of sleep, calories, energy, mood, so that they're able to take action on that first step of their social journey.
There are pros and cons to both of these ideas of motivation. With the heroic view, the pro, I think, is that it can be quite empowering. Even just saying out loud, oh, you have within you to do the things you want to do. You can do it. If there's nothing physically stopping you, then there's nothing physically stopping you.
I'm going to go into depth on this later, but there is a certain amount of overwhelming feeling that can actually crush you and scale back those actions, making you much less likely to engage with them in the future if you do treat yourself like a robot and force yourself to do things that are entirely outside your comfort zone.
Just decide. That's great. That feels great to say and to listen to, and Lord knows it gets views online. But it has a very insidious downside, which is, and I've certainly had this experience, whereby you might consciously realize, okay, there's nothing physically stopping me from doing the thing that I want, but I'm watching myself not do it for hours on end, or days on end, or weeks on end, or months on end, and so on and so forth. And if you've had that experience like I have, you can feel very disempowered. You can start to think, well, actually, maybe I just don't have what it takes.
I think that's a very easy vicious cycle to go into that is very easy for people to blame themselves for. I know I've absolutely done it in the past. Why can't I just do this thing? And it'll take weeks, months, sometimes years to do. And the important part of this is that those feelings are very valid. And as long as you keep striving to make a breakthrough in that pattern, then you don't have to feel guilty if you're truly trying over and over again with your best effort. And sometimes your best effort isn't going to look that good for that specific day, and that's okay.
I'm lacking in some fundamental way. I'm defective. I don't have that inner reservoir. I don't have that dog in me. And it doesn't really give you any means to rectify that, because the voice just whispers, you're lazy or whatever. And still at the same time says, no, you actually can do it. You're just deciding not to, which sucks. The pros and cons of the systemic view. Well, the pros are that it gives you some practical steps for adjusting this, right? It says, well, look, maybe you need to get better sleep. Maybe you need to eat better. Maybe you need to take care of yourself a little bit, or hang out with your friends more. And that's going to change the texture of your experience and allow you to do the things that you want to do, which is great. But I think it also has a very subtle downside, which is that if you do say, okay, I'm this complex biological machine and I need all these different things to be in place in order to do the things that I want to do, you can also start to view yourself as quite fragile. And for as many different factors that come together, this produces just as many different fronts for an excuse that you can use to get out of it. So you can say, well, I can't really do that today because I didn't have a great night's sleep, or, I haven't eaten well, I haven't done my hour mindfulness routine, or what have you. And so you can start to view yourself as quite fragile. And I also think, ironically, one of the ingredients of this systemic view is how you view yourself. And that's a downside compared to people who say, I don't worry about that. If I decide to do it, it's going to happen. So what to do? How can we bring together the best of both these worlds? I think the funny thing about being a human, or one of the funny things, is that we don't live in the real world in the sense that we live in a subjective one, right? We are not just the drivers of the car, we are also the engine, and how we perceive the road affects how our car runs. So an example I like to think of is that, physics tells us that everything's made of atoms and that atoms are mostly empty space. But I don't walk around my day, even though I have this knowledge, thinking, oh, yeah, this is empty space, this is all empty space. I think of it as solid, right? We need heuristics, we need models of which to operate in the world. So the frame I have, which I think is a happy middle ground and an improvement, is something I call the video game frame. Might sound a bit silly, bear with me. This frame asserts that, much like in a video game, when you wake up, you spawn, you have some stats, and these are objective, and this is how well slept you are, how you're feeling on the day, are you sick or not, all this sort of stuff. And that's just how it is. In the same way as a video game, you might have health, stamina, mana, what have you. Now, sometimes that's going to flat out dictate what you can and can't do, but most of the time, what it's going to dictate is just the difficulty of the challenges that lie before you. If you play a game, one of the ways of making it easier is that you level up and you get better gear, and so suddenly enemies or bosses that you struggled with before, you can do much easier. But you could have done it without leveling up. In fact, enemies or bosses that you struggled with before, you can do much easier. But you could have done it without leveling up. In fact, there are entire gaming communities dedicated to people who try and complete games without leveling up the character at all. And usually this requires a combination of a lot of skill, creativity, and patience. And it's achievable if you really want to go about that. And the reason why I really like this frame is that it allows me to, on a day where I'm feeling pretty low and my stats aren't great, to say, okay, well, this thing that maybe normally wouldn't have been challenging for me, it's going to be a challenge, so I can acknowledge that. And I can still do it. I might need to be creative. I might need to play skillfully or patiently. I can still do this. Or I can come back tomorrow, and today I can do things that are going to mean my stats are better the next time I show up for this challenge. And so I can take care of myself today such that the difficulty curve tomorrow is a lot more gentle. I think that, for me at least, gives me enough psychological room and almost playfulness when it comes to a bad day, with saying, all right, there's also, in a sense, a greater achievement that can be had from being on the back foot here, but also I feel no guilt for opting out that day in the knowledge that I'm empowering myself for the next time. That was quite wordy. Verbose, I guess. I could have made it more succinct. If you see any overt issues with this view, please let me know. And if you have a better one, I would also like to know that. Thank you so much for listening.
I'm going to go back to my gym analogy from earlier. Most days when you go into the gym, you have a plan. I'm going to hit this movement for 3 heavy sets, and I'm going to hit this movement for, 6 light sets. But there's this idea called auto-regulation. It's calibrating to your own self. Some days you're going to walk into the gym and you're going to be able to execute your plan that you had prepared ahead of time. Other days, you are going to come to the gym and you just don't have it in you. And those days, you're going to accomplish a lot more by tackling some of the lighter reps and sets and weights. You're going to get way more done by trying things that you can actually accomplish rather than forcing yourself to stick to a program and not be able to accomplish the things that you set out ahead for yourself, because life happens and we are different people day to day. Now, generally, over time, it should look like a consistent progress bar, but in the day-to-day, it's going to vary wildly up and down what you're able to do and accomplish each day, no matter what it is: productivity, gym, social. These things are going to be impacted massively by what your spawning stats are, as this guy says. I really enjoyed this video, and I had not thought of calibration and autoregulation being used in a productivity or social context. Did this make sense to you? Did the drawings help at all? Have any of these motivation types worked for you? Thanks for